All right. Hello. Welcome to Woven, everyone. It's so good seeing everyone today. We kind of have some mood lighting here that I love. We are starting a month of talking about sacredness in pop culture, basically. The concept of we actually value and believe that everything is sacred. So today, that fun little topic will be on Lord of the Rings, and Derek will be leading us in that. If you like Star Wars, Matt and Andrew will be talking about that next week, and then the rest of the month's Avatar. So have fun with those things. Charles just let me know, the next 2 weekends, there is a play going on called A Very Sordid Wedding. It's at the Lexington Pam Miller Art Center downtown. And if you are interested in going to that, see Charles after today's service. And the biggest thing, the Woven EP has dropped. So that dropped yesterday. That is on all streaming platforms. And on August the 2nd, I think we've landed on in the Pride Hall, we will be having a concert to celebrate that event. We decided to do Pride Hall because it is an inferno of heat outside, and we don't want everyone to die. So we just want to say a special welcome to all of you, regardless of your race, your gender, your queerness, your socioeconomic status, whether you believe in God or not, whether you like the Bible or not. You're valued and affirmed and wanted here, just as you are.
This is from the Black Liturgy's book for healing from church abuse. Divine shelter, who can we trust? The origins of so many wounds are leaders who habitually abuse their spiritual authority. Spaces that demand our fealty and faith have been breeding grounds for abuse of all kinds. Reveal their false moral superiority. Spew from the pulpit the deceptive and power-thirsty. Expose them for who they are. Break every false teaching and attune the spiritually vulnerable to the sound of their own voice. Lead us into new spaces of physical and spiritual safety where we can heal and connect and meet our pain and alienation with true belonging. Raise up new leaders, women, trans, queer, black, disabled. People who understand collective power and collective liberation. May it be so.
I was lost in utter darkness. I was trapped in toxic shame. I was bound by my religion till I chose to break away. I was lost in utter darkness. I was trapped in toxic shame. I was bound by my religion till I chose to break away. Now I'm finding my true colors. For the first time I feel free. Now I'm learning self-compassion, and as I heal, I'm finding peace. I kept up those who lived life differently. I saw the world in right or wrong, but they're all humans just like me. I stepped out and love expanded us, and them melted away. Beauty found in every difference. As I listened, I'm amazed. I saw danger in my questions. I took captive all my thoughts. Certainty was my salvation, till I questioned what was taught. Now my eyes are wide in wonder, mind set free now to discern. I might not have all the answers, but I have all this life to learn. I was lost in utter darkness. I was trapped in toxic shame. I was bound by my religion till I chose to break away. Now I'm finding my true colors. For the first time I feel free. Now I'm learning self-compassion. As I heal, I'm finding peace.
Can we clap for Daniel? Because he does such an amazing job every time I'm out and whenever I speak. So I'm very thankful for you, Daniel. And yeah, you're just so good. Gotta get a swig of my Sprite. Okay. Hi. We now are in a series like Logan was talking about where we're going to talk about sacredness in pop culture. And for the uninitiated, that can maybe sound a little bit like goofy, just because it's like, I don't know, me growing up, I was convinced that anything that wasn't made by Christians was probably not worth anything. And so if you are in the initiated, as in you come to this church, you hear a lot about God being in some things that people said God couldn't be in. So the funny thing about Lord of the Rings is that J.R.R. Tolkien was a devout Catholic. Very, very, very Christian person. And yes, we believe Catholics are Christian in this church. Thank you. So he, like everything that he was his Catholicism. And if it says anything to you, he was one of the people that eventually convinced C.S. Lewis to be a Christian. C.S. Lewis was an avid atheist. And C.S. Lewis ended up becoming one of the greatest theologians of our century. So just kind of putting the roots in the tree of what's happening today, J.R.R. Tolkien is probably, I think, a better theologian than C.S. Lewis was, simply because he wrote these books. Because he actually said in commentary about these books that they were not an allegory for Christianity. And then they just ended up being one of the greatest analogies for Christianity ever. And so I think it's just really funny how, like, I think sometimes those of us who are very active of faith, we sometimes do things that are kind of mindless in a way, but it always ends up having this kind of mirror of our life and faith, if that makes sense. So, like, even when I write music that's not technically like worship or Christian, it still has this embodiment of the Christian story. And so, what I think is really cool about these books in particular is that when you read just the books, you get this massive creation of a narrative that almost seems like it shouldn't work because there's so much of it. And even like J.R. Tolkien and his son, and I think a couple, maybe one of his grandsons, actually had to keep writing books and writing appendices for these books because so much of what J.R. Tolkien wrote was like, what the hell is he talking about? It was just like these little one-offs, like he would talk about this character or this place, and people are like, who? Where? Like, what are you talking about? And so one thing that I love about the books is that, one, J.R. Tolkien was a master of language. Just the way these books are written are beautiful. They are descriptive in a way that I don't think I've ever read in another author. And the other thing that I love about these books is that every single character has a purpose and a place, even if you don't realize who they are without reading the other stuff around the books. Like those appendices, there's something called the Silmarillion, which is actually kind of the Bible of the Lord of the Rings mythology and all this other stuff. It is a whopper. There's an entire very long chapter that describes a tree. One tree. The whole chapter is just describing a tree. That's how dope J.R. Tolkien is. And it's very dense and not for the faint of heart. But the thing that I wanted to really do today, I'm going to kind of talk about the books in particular, but the movies really captured the essence of the story. The books and the movies are really different from each other. There's things that they left out. There's things that they brought in. There's things that they took from other books. Like they took some stuff from the second movie, put it in the first. There's like chronologically sometimes it's different. But I think the real message of it stays the same, and that's what I want to talk about today. But first, I want to read a little bit of this. And this is, it's a spoiler. So sorry if you've never heard of Lord of the Rings or don't know what happens. If you don't, you've been living under a rock or you're from Russia. So this is right after Frodo and Sam have destroyed the ring. They have come back to where Aragorn is, and Aragorn is about to be crowned king, or has been crowned king. And if you don't know what that means, I'll explain it in a few minutes. So, as they came to the opening in the wood, they were surprised to see knights in bright mail and tall guards in silver and black standing there, who greeted them with honor and bowed before them. And then one blew a long trumpet, and they went on through the aisle of trees beside the singing stream. So they came to a wide green land, and beyond it a river in a silver haze, out of which rose a long wooded isle, and many ships lay by its shores. But on the field, there they now stood, a great host that was drawn up, in ranks and companies glittering in the sun. And as the hobbits approached, swords were unsheathed, and spears were shaken, and horns and trumpets sang. And men cried with many voices and in many tongues, "Long live the halflings! Praise them with great praise! Praise them with great praise, Frodo and Samwise! Praise them, praise them, praise them, the ring bearers! Praise them with great praise!" And so, the red blood blushing in their faces and their eyes shining with wonder, Frodo and Sam went forward and saw that amidst the clamorous host were set 3 high seats, built of green turves. Behind the seat upon the right floated, white on green, a great horse running free. Upon the left was a banner, silver upon blue, a ship swan-proed faring on the sea. But behind the highest throne, in the midst of all a great standard, was spread in the breeze, and there a white tree flowered upon a sable field, beneath a shining crown and 7 glittering stars. On the throne sat a mail-clad man. A great sword was laid across his knees, but he wore no helm. As they drew near, he rose, and then they knew him, changed as he was, so high and glad of face, kingly, lord of men, dark-haired with eyes of gray. Frodo ran to meet him, and Sam followed close behind. "Well, if this isn't the crown of all," he said, "Strider, or I'm still asleep." "Yes, Sam, Strider," said Aragorn. "It is a long way, is it not, from Bree, where you did not like the look of me? A long way for us all, but yours has been the darkest road." And then, to Sam's surprise and utter confusion, he bowed his knee before them, and taking them by the hand, Frodo upon his right and Sam upon his left, he led them to the throne, and sitting them upon it, he turned to the men and captains who stood by and spoke so that his voice rang over all the host, crying, "Praise them with great praise." And when the glad shout had swelled up and died away again, to Sam's final and complete satisfaction and pure joy, a minstrel of Gondor stood forth and knelt and begged leave to sing. And behold, he said, "Lo, lords and knights and men of valor unashamed, kings and princes and fair people of Gondor, and riders of Rohan, and ye sons of Elrond, and Dunedain of the north, and elf and dwarf, the great hearts of the Shire, and all free folk of the West, now listen to my lay, for I will sing to you of Frodo of the 9 Fingers and the Ring of Doom." And when Sam heard that, he laughed aloud for sheer delight, and stood up and cried, "O great glory and splendor, and all my wishes have come true." And then he wept. And all the host laughed and wept. And in the midst of their merriment and tears, the clear voice of the minstrel rose like silver and gold, and all men were hushed. And he sang to them, now in the elven tongue, now in the speech of the West, until their hearts, wounded with sweet words, overflowed, and their joy was like swords. And they passed in thought out to regions where pain and delight flow together, and tears are the very wine of blessedness. So, in this passage, talking about it like it's the Bible, in this part of the story, Frodo and Sam have just completed their mission of taking the Ring of Power, which was created by this Dark Lord Sauron. And this ring held within it power and malice and all the things that you need to overthrow people and hold power over people. And they just got done with this quest that they were on. And naturally, as hobbits who are very small, they're a lot like me, just a little fatter, they run in to some of the worst things that can happen to people. They run into enemies who very well should squash them, but they end up doing what they were set out to do. And in this moment, The two of them, after years and years of this journey, finally see one of the first people who took them up and protected them. And his name was Strider in the first book, but he ends up being known as Aragorn, who is one of the last of the line of rightful kings of Gondor. And Gondor is like the most powerful kingdom of Middle-earth, of men. And what Aragorn does is he sets these two hobbits on his own throne and kneels before them as if they are his king, or his kings. And he has all of the rest of these people who fought in these wars, who were really fighting for Frodo and Sam, has all of them basically praise them for what they've done. The main crux of these entire books is that what conquers power, what conquers corruptibility, what conquers the things that make the world shitty is love and fellowship and humility. These hobbits had no business doing what they did. They're Shire folk. The Shire was a place where they just ate till they were fat, drank ale, and smoked weed. That's literally all they did. It's a simple life, as it's called. And that dank Shire weed was so good that even the evil guys, one of them being Saruman, who was like a pawn of Sauron, stole their weed. Like this wizard who was like this all-powerful wizard wanted some of that dank weed. So they had it going for them, basically. They were in a spot where wars didn't really happen where they were. They did not interfere in any type of happenings outside of their walls. But here's Frodo and here's Sam. There's another couple of hobbits that were with them, Merry and Pippin. They do their own heroic things. But for Frodo and Sam to be the ones who basically save everyone by taking this symbol of corrupt, terrible, like murderous evil and defeat it because they're the very ones that the enemy least expected to fight back. That's the gospel. That's Jesus. That is a humble, Middle Eastern poor Jew taking on empires of the world by dying. What the enemy expected was this big army and these strong men and these elves that were so powerful that they literally created Middle-earth. These beings, these wizards, these not even people, these grand entities, they all would have been corrupted by the evil. Every single one of them. But because it was the humblest that took on that journey, there's one thing that cannot be corrupted, and that's love. The love that Frodo and Sam had kept them together. It kept them fighting for each other. Even when Frodo fails and falls to the ring and doesn't want to give it up, he's literally standing at the lava where it was created. He's supposed to throw it in, but he doesn't. And then an act of fate makes another character come in and just when the ring is destroyed. But Sam was by him the entire way, and I think Sam is actually the hero of these books, not Frodo. Sam is. Because he never gave up the hope of the love that he had for Frodo. So when you think about life as we have it, life as it always has been, violence, corrupted power, corrupted politics, corrupted just everything that you can think of that makes the world sucky. What beats that? Love and humility beat it. You think about the people who have caused change, what sucks is that most of them were martyrs. But what happened because they were martyrs? People were inspired to take up the charge that they had. That is honestly the hard part of the Christian message. That humility, that love, that the love that Jesus had, our scriptures say, that he was so humble, he was humbled to the point of death, even a death on a cross. And what Paul means there is that the cross was one of the worst, most embarrassing, most shameful, most awful deaths that you could possibly imagine back then. This book, even though J.R. Tolkien said that it wasn't supposed to be a Christian book, it is, because it tells the life of Jesus. And a lot of the questions that people had when these came out was, why didn't the more powerful entities take the ring? Most notably, the eagles. The eagles were a race of giant, huge, at like wingspans as big as this wall-to-wall of this church. They play an important part in these books. But one of the things that people ask is, why didn't the eagles just carry Frodo and Sam to Mount Doom and have them drop the ring in the lava and then fly away? Well, one, the enemy would see them. Two, they would have been very, kind of goes along with that. They would have been noticed by the enemy and taken care of pretty quickly. Because even Sauron had these flying beasts. It's all in there. Watch the movies, you'll get it. But I kind of want to raise a question that I don't really know the answer to. Why does God not just fix the shit? What if it's because God is humble and humility does a better job than an iron fist? What if love does a better job? What if God actually can't act out of anything but love? And controlling people, controlling situations, controlling things, that's not loving, that's abusive, that's manipulative, and God doesn't do that. So I guess the question is, what exactly do we have faith in God to do? Is it to fix all of the shitty stuff? Or is it to help us be humble and loving to get through the shitty stuff without corrupting ourselves and being violent or being manipulative or being all the things that we say we're against? So, that's what The Lord of the Rings teaches me about Jesus and why it's sacred to me, because it tells a story about why humility is the best route to take when it comes to fighting empires or power, or as my wedding ring is actually the ring of power. But the poem on it says, it is one ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and one ring to bind them. That's what power does. It controls, it manipulates, it causes violence. Love is the exact opposite of that. So, we're going to move on into a time of being at the table together. And one thing that I want to kind of drive home is that the reason that Jesus said to take this in remembrance of him, it was to remember how he did things. And how he did that was he gave up his body, gave up his blood. He gave up everything that made him human so that he could become the fully God that we know he is, or that we believe he is, or that we hope he is. And I think in that is Jesus being the most God that he is. Being humble, being loving, being willing to wash dirty-ass feet, and being able to say to the person who made the violence happen against him, I'm washing your feet too. So, feel free to go back and get your elements and we'll take it together. And like Aragorn did for the hobbits when they came out in victory, a king, the highest king of Middle Earth, came and sat them on his throne and bowed before them. And that is one of the most vivid pictures of how Jesus is to us. And I think in a way, when we join with Jesus in this act of remembrance, it's just a little step of us being humble hobbits, going up to a king and a king saying, "Join me in my throne because you belong there." So we take this in remembrance of a king who did not force his way, did not abuse his way, did not manipulate his way into a crown, but he simply lived as he is, which the Apostle John says God is love, that when Jesus was raised up on the cross, he was being raised up to his throne. Because the most kingly thing, the most godly thing that Jesus could have done was die. So we take this in remembrance of that humility and that love. And Paul says that in one of the Corinthians, that following the way of Jesus is complete absurdity, because this is what is required, is humility and love and not power. So fellow nerds, walk in love and in justice and in humility, because that's the way that Jesus did it. Love you all. Is there anything else I need to talk about? Okay. Love y'all. See you next week.